where you want it.
Bay 12, please.
Hello there, Transformers fans, and welcome back to another Bay 12 video review. And today we are reviewing the newest Pretenders, or rather modern Pretenders, from the Transformers Legacy line. From Wave 3 of Legacy, we have Deluxe Skullgrin, which is one of my all-time favorite Pretenders, and Core Class Bombburst. So this is the second and third Pretender in the Legacy line. The first, of course, was Iguanus in Wave 1 of Legacy. And hopefully we start getting some other Pretenders soon. Hopefully we start getting some Autobots more specifically. Granted, the Decepticon Pretenders look way cooler. I think they're far more interesting because they're based off of, you know, monster creature looking characters, whereas the Autobot Pretenders were just humans in suits. Was the aesthetic for them for the most part, with the exception of Starscream. Starscream was the only human in suit Decepticon Pretender. So still a really cool set of figures, an awesome concept. Fingers crossed that one day, probably not anytime soon, probably definitely not in Legacy, we actually get proper Pretenders back. And I think I talked about this in the Iguanus video, but it is totally possible for Hasbro to do this. Now, granted, in order to do it, they would definitely have to go to the next scale up in pricing because of the engineering it's gonna take, most likely. And I'm sure a lot of people don't want to hear that, but that's kind of how Hasbro does it at this point, is depending on the engineering, depends on the scale now, more so than the actual scale of the figure. So you could have a deluxe class figure that has a much more complicated transformation than an average deluxe class figure, and now all of a sudden it's Voyager class. It's annoying for a lot of Transformers fans, yes, I know, because size-wise it's a deluxe, not a Voyager, but that's kind of how it's been the past couple of years. So I don't see that changing anytime soon, and I see that as one of the most viable methods in order to engineer proper Pretenders in the future for mass market, especially given the shell. The biggest issue is the shell. The shell needs more articulation. So basically you would have a torso that's hollow, sure, and a fully articulated set of limbs with the main fully articulated figure inside. That's really the only feasible way to do it, and price-wise it's complicated, which is why I like these so much, because it's a very nice middle ground. You still get that awesome monster-looking robot mode, but you still have that same vehicle mode that the Pretender initially had with the original toy, which it's an awesome hybrid, honestly. It's probably going to be the best way to do this going forward, honestly. As much as I would love to see shells return as the solution I mentioned moments ago would be the best way to do it, this is much more affordable and much more feasible, I think, on Hasbro's part. So, but hopefully we get a Bludgeon and a new Thunderwing soon, because Thunderwing and Bludgeon and Skullgrin are my three most favorite Pretenders of all time. So hopefully we get the other two, but I'm glad we got Skullgrin, and I'm glad he's a deluxe and not a core class, because he's just so awesome. Anyway, here is Skullgrin. That's who we're gonna start off with first. He's in his deluxe class packaging, hollow window there. There he is in tank mode, and then there he is in robot mode. There's a up close of his face, and then a little outshot there of his full body, well, most of his full body. Legacy artwork on the side, and then toy shots on the back. And that's pretty much it for Skullgrin's packaging. Here he is in his robot mode. They did such a nice job on that head sculpt. It is articulated on a ball joint. The horns do collapse, but that's mostly due to transformation. Also, these rear horns also articulate, but again, that's mostly due to transformation. He's got these cool little bone spikes here and some more on his hips. He's got the little skull belt buckle, just like the original toy had. He's got his blaster rifle. They combined the aesthetic of his blaster rifle and his sword into one weapon and gave him a pair of those, and that's really cool. And then, of course, he also has the tank guns for his tank mode sitting here on his back. This is removable, so you can take that off. And then I also like how he still has his little tail here as part of the upper turret. section. Head is on a ball joint, as I already covered. Fully articulated shoulders, in and out, upper bicep, double jointed elbows. Wrists go up and down due to transformation of them folding in. You've got waist, hips, upper thigh, single jointed knees, side ankle joints, and a little bit of a forward and back on the foot, mostly due to transformation, which is really cool. For comparison, here he is next to Iguanus, so you can see how they stand next to each other, and he's about twice the size of Iguanus, but I like how they scaled them based off of their vehicle modes. I like how, as a tank, he's larger than Iguanus, who is a motorcycle here. So I like how that kind of determined their scaling size here. Plus, they still make for really awesome looking figures. And I like that there's now variation in scaling in the Pretenders. I think that's really cool. Rather than just have the same size shell across the board and then a smaller robot mode. I like how they broke up the scaling on them. I think that was a cool choice. All right, transformation. Transformation is pretty simple. We're going to start by taking his blasters out of his hands there. We're going to fold his hands inside of his forearm like so. Let's just go ahead and pinch those horns together, fold those back horns down, come over here to this tail, fold that up. Next up, we're going to open up his chest here and rotate on this hinge his back panel like so. And then we're going to collapse that panel right there, close that chest back up. Come back over here, we're going to, on this guide, pull his shoulders up or his arms down, depending on how you're looking at it. You'll hear that click back into place. Fold those shoulders down, rotate those biceps, peg those arms together, and that's pretty much it for all of that. Next up, we have the legs. We're going to extend this rear section of the legs all the way out, fold in the feet, and then on this double hinge, we're going to bring the leg up, tab the knee onto the thigh, tab the knee onto the thigh on this side, peg the legs together. On this side, we're going to rotate these treads over to the side, and then we're just going to bring up this whole section. This is going to tab into the back of the thigh, and I just realized I missed a step. Before we try to line up that whole section, we're actually going to fold the waist back so the skull is facing forward, and then rotate the legs up, and then tab the back of the knees into the bottom of the what was the torso there. There we go. There we go. Okay. And then we bring up that section, tab it in, and then this tread's going to tab into the back of to the side of the arm. Do the same thing over here, tab it in. It's going to tab into the side of the arm. And there he is in his tank mode. Pretty simple looking tank mode. It's kind of a wonky looking tank mode, just like the original G1 toy. If you squint really hard, yeah, it looks like a tank, just like the original G1 toy. The original G1 toy looked even less of a tank than this does. So they definitely made it look a little bit cooler. Now you can add his other guns to the side of the other barrels and give him these cool double barrel cannons with these awesome long range, or with these awesome longer bladed cannons. And overall, I think that's a really cool tank mode. Next up, we have Core Class Bombburst. On the top of the card, you have Bombburst in his little drone, mini jet mode, whatever you want to call it. On the back, you get to see the figure. On this side, you get to see some robot mode artwork. On that side, some legacy artwork, and that's pretty much it for the box. Now, Bombburst is a good bit smaller than Skullgrin, being a core class. I like how he has these null ray wing blasters on his arms. I also think it looks cool if you flip them up too. Couple cool little designs. He comes with this wrench looking weapon. I'm not quite sure what that's supposed to be. It looks kind of like a weird wrench thing to me. I don't know. It's interesting. Very articulated. Head rotates on a swivel. Ball jointed shoulders, ball jointed elbows, waist, hips, ball jointed knees, side ankle joints. You can collapse the feet, but that's mostly due to transformation. And that's pretty much it for articulation on this guy. I've always loved Bombburst's aesthetic too. He's not amongst my most favorite pretenders, but I do still like his aesthetic. I like the big man-bat looking robot mode that he has. And then for comparison, here he is next to Iguanus. I think Iguanus is just a hair taller than him. Not by much, just barely taller than him. But there you have them side by side. Transformation is very simple. We're going to take his wrench out of his hand to start. Then we're going to bring this back section up on its double hinge there. See that like so. Rotate his guns facing forward, rotate his waist, collapse the feet, and then bring up the legs, and then they just peg right onto the torso there, covering up the robot mode face like so. You don't really do anything with the arms. They just kind of sit here along the side of his body, which is kind of strange because they also don't really peg in to anywhere, so there's nothing really securing the arms in place other than the friction of the ball joint, which is okay as long as you don't have loose limbs. If you have loose limbs and his arms are just flopping around in his little mini jet drone mode, well, that's going to be a problem, I guess. And then you can take his little wrench weapon here, and it just plugs in right here on the other side of that, and you've got this little mini blaster there in the middle, plus his little wing guns, which look cool. And again, I like the underside of the wings because they've got like this bat wing, mechanical bat wing like texture to them, which looks really neat. So overall, little Bombburst here has a cool little jet mode. And for comparison, here he is next to Skullgrin in tank mode, and here he is next to Iguanus in his little motorcycle mode. Honestly, alt mode wise, I feel like Bombburst is the weakest here, mostly because of his size. I feel like Bombburst should have maybe been a deluxe class, because he looks like he could have at least passed as a deluxe class if he was just a little bit larger. Iguanus makes sense the most as a core class. Being a little motorcycle, he scales really well next to Skullgrin in his bike mode and tank mode, I think. Much better than Bombburst does next to everybody else. Bombburst is the smallest. As a drone, okay, sure, I can see it. But why have a cockpit then? Why have a cockpit if it's a drone? You know? That's why I say drone jet mode. Overall, an awesome set of figures from an awesome wave. What do you think about this new modern take on the Pretenders so far? Were you even familiar with the Pretenders at all up until Legacy? Let us know in the comments and let us know what you think about the Pretenders. I've always thought it was a cool concept, especially since, like, as a kid, I always loved figures released in multiples. I always loved multi-packs as a kid because I always felt like I was getting more value for what I was paying for by getting at least 2 or more figures versus a pack, even if it was cheaper or more, and especially if it was more expensive, then I would be buying a pack that only had 1 action figure in it. I liked Transformer concepts that had multiples packed in one. And the original Pretenders was cool because you had the inner robot and the shell, and due to the way they structured the lore on that, you had 2 separate action figures. They could both act independently of each other. They were the same character, but I don't know. Just overall, I just thought it was a really cool concept. I've always liked the Pretenders. I've always thought they were cool, even though the original figures were kind of wonky looking, especially the inner robots. I very much like this hybridization of the 2 concepts as one figure. I think it works well for these characters, and I just can't wait to see the ones that come out next. So Stay tuned. Stay tuned for more Transformer reviews. Check out some of our other Bay 12 content and reviews here on Bay 12. Make sure you like and subscribe and follow us on social media. Check out our live sales that we do here on our Bay 12 YouTube channel. And if you're local or in town, check out our storefront inside the Shops at Willow Bend Mall, Plano, Texas, inside Order 66 Multiverse. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you another time. Transform and roll out.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.